Sob o olhar atento da imprensa internacional, a arqueóloga grega Liana Sovaltsis escava no remoto oásis egípcio de Siwa. Procura o santo grau da arqueologia popular grega. A última morada do mais espetacular conquistador que jamais existiu. Alexandre Magno. Em busca de Alexandre Magno.
Ever since my childhood, the myths and stories of Alexander the Great have captured my imagination. Today I'm an archaeologist at Newcastle University, and still Alexander fascinates me. Now why? Well, of course we know that he was a great warrior and that he lived 300 years before Christ. But he was so much more than that. He genuinely believed that he was divine, and indeed his subjects worshipped him as a living God.
Na atualidade, tal como a sua morte misteriosa, o local dos seus restos mortais permanece um enigma.
Where? Here. Alexander is buried here.
Investigarei as sensacionais descobertas de Liana Sovaltsis no oásis de Siwa, que fazem com que Alexandre seja hoje centro de atenção mundial, tal como foi em vida.
We found 2 Greek inscriptions, and the formations reveal the truth.
Mas não interessa só a sua localização física. Destacados académicos estão a explorar ainda mais a mente e a alma de Alexandre com o objetivo de tentarem compreender a natureza da sua divindade. Aqueles que herdaram o seu império também acreditavam que eram divinos, e alguns desses reis autoproclamados deuses fizeram o impossível e chegaram a qualquer altura para celebrar o seu poder sobrenatural.
I'm in a mountaintop kingdom in Turkey of just such a god king, Antiochus. He's buried here under this huge mound to be near his fellow gods. And here they all are, seated on vast thrones, their toppled heads scattered down the mountainside. Now, you might think that the story of Alexander's legacy could hardly go further, but during this programme, I'm going to be exploring the idea that, amazingly, Alexander even affects the way we think today.
That Alexander is buried in Siwa, I am very positive.
O que é que podemos dizer da grande estrela da arqueologia Liana Sovaltsis? Desde 1989 que está a escavar na zona de Maraki, em Siwa, e nos últimos 4 anos está convencida que encontrou o túmulo de Alexandre Magno. A primeira pista de que poderia estar aqui enterrado chegou ao escutar os habitantes da zona.
The people are very superstitious, and they like to examine the omens everywhere. They look in the sky, and from the flying of the birds, they can see if something good is going to happen or bad. They told me that in this area, according to their legends, was buried a famous king with his sword and his arms. That we are going to find the body, I'm very positive. We shall wait and we shall see.
Encontrar a sepultura de Alexandre seria muito importante para os povos gregos e egípcio. Mas qual seria o prémio? Bom, a julgar pelos achados no túmulo de seu pai, há a possibilidade de nos depararmos com um tesouro como o de Tutankhamon. A beleza destes antigos tesouros recorda-nos como foi sofisticada a época de Alexandre antes da sua civilização desaparecer. É provável que o tesouro e o túmulo de Alexandre, se encontrarem, se pareçam aos descobertos recentemente sob um túmulo perto do seu lugar de nascimento ao norte da Grécia. E estou entusiasmado porque o diretor da escavação permitiu-me ser o primeiro visitante que viu o seu interior.
A tomb was a home for the soul of the dead, and underneath this great pile of mud is a beautiful, well-preserved tomb facade. We're now inside the tomb, and as you can see, it's in fact empty. The floor is bare. And this, of course, could also be what happens if Alexander's tomb is discovered. The treasures have gone. And look, as we go up, we can see marks which look like heavy objects being pulled up, which have been scraped against the wall. Yes, here you can see it. There's this hole in the roof which the robbers went through.
Mas o mais provável é que a última morada de Alexandre esteja no Egito. E como vimos, a atenção do mundo centra-se agora no oásis de Siwa, repleto de câmaras funerárias, como esta colina.
This is just one of a whole labyrinth of Ptolemaic tombs in the Siwa area. Now, for those hunting for Alexander's long-lost tomb, the prize would be much more than the mere dream of finding treasure. It would be knowledge. We know that Alexander's body was embalmed and buried somewhere in Egypt, and mummified corpses from his time survive. There are parts of one behind me. And modern experts can extract lots of information from corpses like this.
Liana Sovaltsis escolheu a equipa forense de múmias do Museu de Manchester para investigar o que podem ser os restos de Alexandre.
Should we be presented with the body of Alexander, it would be given the whole treatment which we give to other mummies. That is, it would be x-rayed. We would then carry out some virtually non-destructive investigation using the endoscopes. We would take tissue samples which could be used for identifying disease, for identifying the DNA of the mummy, and possibly for identifying the blood group.
In the case of Alexander, I believe that there is some question that he drank rather heavily, and I'd be particularly interested in the liver.
Sempre polémica, Liana Sovaltsis tem a sua própria teoria sobre a morte de Alexandre.
There are some ancient authors saying that he died from poison. The poison was sent from Macedonia.
It's well known that, of course, that arsenic has been used since antiquity, and certainly examination of the hair often reveals in bodies that have been around for a long time that they've died from arsenic poisoning.
Há muitas estátuas e outras reproduções de Alexandre. Diz-se que, embora fosse de pequena estatura, tinha uma complexão elegante e bem proporcionada, pele branca e um odor agradável. Tinha olhos claros e corava com facilidade. Será que a descoberta dos seus restos mortais nos permitiria ter a ideia exata do seu aspecto?
If we had the skull of Alexander the Great, then we would be able to do with him what we did with his father, Philip II of Macedon, namely this. What we did with that cremated skull from Vergina was to reconstruct the face on the skull. And that is actually the result of a great deal of medical research. So if this was the skull of Alexander the Great, we would make a plaster cast of it. Into that cast, we would insert pegs at 21 points. That is all shown here. The lips beginning to be built up, and then over that one adds the subcutaneous tissue in the skin to get the finished face. And we would then have a face that all his soldiers would have recognised. That would be exciting.
Estou em Tessalónica, na zona macedónica ao norte da Grécia, o território de Alexandre. O Dia Nacional serve para ilustrar uma nova expressão do orgulho grego. Há menos de 2 séculos, os gregos acabaram com 500 anos de domínio turco. Estão muito orgulhosos de Alexandre Magno. Como para os britânicos o rei Artur, o espírito de Alexandre está adormecido, não morto, e as suas ideias podem devolver à Grécia a sua grandeza.
He is saying that the significance of Alexander is that he goes beyond frontiers, goes beyond the frontiers of Greece and is a world figure.
Partilhar o seu entusiasmo permite-me compreender melhor porque se segue tanto os progressos de Liana Suvaltsis. Possuir o corpo de Alexandre foi sempre vital, em especial durante a luta de poder que seguiu à sua morte. Hoje em dia, continuaria a ser uma importante relíquia e, se encontrasse, aumentaria os sentimentos nacionalistas.
She is saying that if the body has been found at Siwa, it should be brought back and buried in Greece.
Onde estão, pois, os seus restos? A minha demanda levou-me ao delta do Nilo, à cidade egípcia de Alexandria, a mais importante das muitas cidades que Alexandre fundou e a que deu o seu nome.
From what trustworthy ancient accounts there are, we know that Alexander's body was on display here from shortly after his death in 323 BC for almost 600 years. And for scientists hoping to get their hands on him, this is quite a likely place, I think, for his body to be unearthed. The trouble is, Alexandria has never ceased to be a living, vibrant community. So the modern city has grown up on layer upon layer of the past. And precisely because the Greek and Roman city is now so deep down, it's never really been properly excavated. But chance discoveries from time to time have revealed tantalizing glimpses of an ancient world under these pavements. This labyrinth of burial chambers, now being drained by Egyptian archaeologists, was stumbled upon 100 years ago when a donkey and cart literally fell into it, and I've myself just had that ghastly sinking feeling when for a while I got lost in it. It's these chance discoveries that feed the dreams of Greek enthusiasts bent on recovering the body of their beloved Alexander. This is just one of a warren of Roman catacombs in use at the time we lose track of Alexander's body. This is the mortuary chamber, guarded by fearsome Egyptian demons, now dressed as Roman legionaries. And here, the burial rites are supervised by the traditional pharaonic gods.
Mas pode trazer-se mais luz sobre o mistério do seu paradeiro? Bom, existem alguns documentos históricos que nos revelam mais coisas.
It seems that Alexander's body had come to rest here in Alexandria in a Lenin-like display, surrounded by the corpses of his royal Macedonian successors in Egypt, the Ptolemies. Now, all we know about his supposedly magnificent mausoleum is that on the surface there was a pyramid, seemingly recalling the grandiose ideas of the old pharaohs. Underneath the pyramid lay his mummified corpse, and people have hunted for this here in the Ptolemaic tombs of Alexandria.
Sabemos que, como este magnífico ataúde de ouro de Tutankhamon, o sarcófago original de Alexandre também era de ouro maciço. Mas um dos últimos Ptolomeus, com escassas provisões de ouro, substituiu esta versão de ouro por outra transparente, provavelmente de alabastro.
Now, what happened after the last recorded sighting of the body in AD 215 is guesswork. The widely held view is that both tomb and body went up in smoke during a revolt here in the AD 270s, or that it was in a part of the city now under the sea. But I suppose it's just about conceivable that his mausoleum remained intact until the triumph of Christianity in the 4th century AD. I wonder if it's utterly fanciful to think that maybe then his pagan devotees secreted the body away into a chamber like this in Alexandria to escape the anti-pagan zeal of the local Christians. Or could they even have taken it out to El Meraki in Siwa?
Embora o oásis de Siwa esteja muito longe de Alexandria, é nele que encontramos um imperador cristão romano acabando com os últimos vestígios de um culto a Alexandre, 800 anos depois da sua morte. Hoje em dia, a imprensa internacional observa expectante os últimos acontecimentos que se desenrolam neste oásis. No meio de um calor abrasador, Liana Suvaltsis mantém obstinadamente a sua afirmação de que esta é a última morada de Alexandre.
We know that Alexander had expressed the will be buried in Siwa. And it was not the will of a simple person. He was the will of a king and of a god. There are a lot of findings in Siwa. The star, 8-ray star.
A descoberta dos dois fragmentos que formam esta estrela é para Liana Suvaltsis uma prova-chave. Segundo afirma, parece com a estrela real de 8 pontas da Macedónia. De facto, podia ter 8 pontas, mas a mim parece-me que lhe falta o eixo de simetria necessário para que fosse uma estrela. E também há as inscrições recentemente descobertas que, segundo ela, demonstram que se trata do túmulo de Alexandre e que, além disso, asseguram que Alexandre foi envenenado. Os especialistas questionam este ponto.
They say it is not written the word poison. It is written here, you.
But this is the Latin personal name, Servius. Servius Sulpicius. This
No.
is part of
No. This is you. This is not a name. You. It's the poison.
So can you just tell us, because this is fascinating, what you think these words mean? Epi, seu, iu, sulpiciu. What does this mean?
Sulpicius, of course, it is a Roman name, but I told you, be patient and you will know everything. I hope very soon.
Well, what did I make of her, this current archaeological superstar? She's certainly a delightful woman, and I must say I admire her enthusiasm and fizz. The trouble is, it's precisely these qualities which make her the opposite of a dispassionate investigator. The bunker mentality here at El Meraki has resulted in the withholding of vital evidence needed if top experts are to contribute to the debate. Talking to her rapidly degenerates into a cat-and-mouse game. But I will say that what I heard in no way encourages me to expect an imminent discovery of the body. To give a precise example, she claims one of her inscriptions hints at the death of Alexander by poison. But specialists in Greek inscriptions would easily recognise in her word for poison part of the word Servius, a common Roman name.
Liana Suvaltsis, como outros antes dela, acredita sentir o poder de estar perto do corpo de Alexandre, mas como sempre ocorre nesta busca, nunca se sabe o que se vai passar. O diretor do Conselho Supremo de Antiguidades Egípcias não rejeita este lugar.
There should be something belonging to Alexander in Alexandria, but there is no doubt that there should have been something for him also in Siwa. We didn't find the mummies in the tomb of the kings in Egypt, in the Valley of the Kings. We found the mummies were stored somewhere else. So it's not necessary to find the mummy, but at least to be sure about the text.
Então, o que encontrou Liana Suvaltsis? Um estudo do famoso arqueólogo Ahmed Fakri documenta um pequeno templo dórico em El Maraki. E isto é o que Liana Suvaltsis parece ter redescoberto. Mas os especialistas que analisaram os seus pormenores arquitetónicos sugerem que é pelo menos um século posterior à morte de Alexandre.
In fact, Liana Suvaltsis, through her finds, may unwittingly provide the key to the true identity of who was worshipped here.
Este fragmento contém a palavra deusa em grego, Thea, seguida de 2 letras, seguramente o princípio do nome Isis.
So it could be, in fact, that what we've got is a previously unknown temple to the Egyptian super-goddess Isis, nothing to do with Alexander. Riveting though the hunt for Alexander's tomb is, academics are now starting to realise that there is something far more important for us today than his mere corpse. It's the search for the truth about his life, and here feelings can run high.
I sort of regard Alexander as a figure strongly analogous to Hitler.
He comes riding in on his great white horse, a symbol of control of all the unruly forces of darkness.
I should think you would probably be a rather aggressive and mindless young man.
In spite of such conflicting views, we do know for certain that by the end of his spectacularly successful life, both he and his subjects believed he was divine. And experts tell us that the fallout from this new phenomenon affects many of the world religions to this day. Could this possibly be true? Well, first we have to search out those aspects of his life which led Alexander to believe he was a living god.
Já antes do nascimento de Alexandre, a sua família estava envolta por uma aura sobrenatural porque afirmava descender do mítico Herácles, um grego majestosamente forte que ganhou um lugar entre os deuses depois de uma vida repleta de heroicas façanhas. Os seus antepassados viviam nas colinas das montanhas do norte da Grécia. Nessa época, os gregos do sul mais sofisticados consideravam que os do norte eram primitivos e idolatras. E diz-se que Olímpia, a mãe de Alexandre, se dedicava a ritos sobrenaturais e que participava em cerimónias orgiásticas nestas montanhas. Estas inclinações de Olímpia ofendiam o rei Filipe, seu marido. Estas atividades ocultas chocavam com o sério estilo de vida militar do rei e também davam lugar a rumores que, sem dúvida, Alexandre ouvia, que diziam que o seu pai não era outro senão o deus grego e egípcio, Zeus Amon. A educação de Alexandre num palácio cheio de magia e de culto aos antepassados pode muito bem ter favorecido uma vertente mística e dado aso a que mais tarde acreditasse que os seus feitos revelavam a sua própria divindade. Alexandre demonstrou depois ser um brilhante líder militar. Dirigia a vanguarda do seu exército, de onde se lançavam os ataques da cavalaria. Era um homem muito valente e exemplar. Na importante batalha de Isso, derrotou um exército persa muito superior em número e inclusive lançou um ataque ao próprio rei Dário, que se viu obrigado a fugir do campo de batalha. No entanto, nunca destruiu qualquer santuário. As suas conquistas intensificaram-se e cada vez abarcava mais regiões do poderoso Império Persa. Nos 3 primeiros anos de campanha reunificou toda a Grécia, expulsando os persas da Ásia Menor e conquistando a Palestina. Dirigiu-se então para o Norte de África, onde iria encontrar-se pela primeira vez com uma importante civilização vários séculos mais antiga do que a sua.
Alexander arrived in Egypt in 332 BC, liberating it from the hated Persians. Although Egypt had just felt the raw power of Alexander, he in turn was now to have a close encounter with the raw power of the Egyptian gods. 2 lines of rams marked the entrance to the massive temple of Amun at Thebes. This god was to play a big part in Alexander's life.
Para os egípcios, Amon era o pai da criação. Os faraós governavam por sua vontade e agradeciam-lhe acrescentando sempre mais coisas a este extraordinário complexo. No coração do templo vemos o próprio Alexandre assumindo o papel de faraó semidivino e fazendo piedosas ofrendas a Amon, o deus de quem aprendera coisas desde criança. Os hieróglifos dizem: Alexandre é rei do sul e do norte, escolhido por Amon e amado pelo deus Sol, Ré, filho do Sol, senhor das aparições. Havia um templo dedicado a este culto muito frequentado pelos gregos, o Oráculo de Amon, no deserto ocidental de Siwa. Alexandre interrompeu a sua implacável campanha contra os persas para se dirigir a este oráculo. Parece que desejava perguntar-lhe se era realmente filho de Amon.
The journey to Siwa was no picnic, and for someone in the middle of a long and dangerous military campaign, this major digression into the desert was strategically risky and indeed foolhardy. Even for me, travelling today in the relative luxury of a vehicle, the journey brings home just how remote this Saharan oasis is. We've been travelling for hour upon hour across baking, empty desert, and I can't help thinking that if we break down, we really will be in the proverbial. Now, the Greek historian Diodorus writes, after 4 days, the army's water gave out, and Alexander's men fell into a fearful thirst. All were in great despair and feared for their lives.
Mas afortunadamente, para demonstrar que os deuses estavam do seu lado, produziu-se uma forte tempestade e viram por fim as águas azuis de Siwa. Siwa continua sendo na atualidade uma comunidade estranha e isolada. As pessoas fazem-me lembrar uma espécie de formigueiro com partes vivas e partes fossilizadas. O antigamente famoso oráculo de Amon encontra-se no alto de um afloramento rochoso. Os viajantes aproximavam-se inquietos, uma vez que o que ia ser desvendado era o seu futuro. Os gregos identificavam a presença divina do templo, o deus Amon, com Zeus, e o seu deus mais poderoso.
When the pilgrim finally got to the top of the mound, he approached the temple itself. The Roman historian Curtius says that when Alexander arrived here, he was welcomed by priests and by local women chanting hymns to our moon. It's difficult to envisage just what the god Amun looked like, but he seems to have manifested himself in different forms. Above all, invisibly and powerfully, as the wind which whips up the great sandstorms around the oasis.
E havia uma pedra insólita. Há quem diga que era um meteorito, talvez como esta reprodução. Tinha esmeraldas incrustadas, para destacar a glória de Amon. E afirma-se que se passeava este objeto em torno do templo numa barca dourada.
Now, what happened next is a mystery, because the prophet priest took Alexander into the Holy of Holies here on his own, and even on his deathbed, Alexander never revealed the secret words of the god. But a clue as to their content emerges from Plutarch's account of what happened the very next time Alexander was exposed to great danger with his troops. He uttered up a prayer, implying he now believed he was the son of a god. "Listen, you gods," Alexander shouted. "If I really am your son, help us now as we go into battle."
Do Egito, Alexandre e o seu imparável exército dirigiram-se para este, até o que é hoje em dia o Afeganistão. No Paquistão enfrentou uns aterradores elefantes. Esta moeda mostra Alexandre atacando um deles e nesta posterior, do Egito, aparece com os elementos característicos do elefante, o que implica que havia adquirido o poder deste animal. Em apenas 13 anos, vencera por completo os persas e controlava o maior império conhecido até então. Uma riqueza incalculável começou a chegar à Macedónia. Até as moedas eram então de ouro. Como os macedónios eram um povo dominante, aumentou a crença de que o seu líder era mais do que um homem, que na realidade os dirigia como um homem-deus e buscavam formas cada vez mais extravagantes de o refletir.
The Greek architect Dinocrates ensured a place in the history of over-the-top public works by proposing to Alexander that this entire Greek mountain, Athos, should be sculptured into one giant man, presumably Alexander himself. Like Gulliver, the figure would have had two massive outstretched hands. In one would be an entire city, while from the other would flow a waterfall, as if in perpetual libation to the gods. As the ancient writer Vitruvius says, Alexander, although delighted, turned it down on practical grounds. There was no farmland on Athos. But in this mounting atmosphere of hyper-adulation, the young conqueror could well have convinced himself that his deeds had revealed him to be divine. As Alexander neared the end of his life, he saw himself ever more strongly as a god. Indeed, the ancient writers suggest that he issued an order demanding divine worship from his subjects. – 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visitors now had to prostrate themselves in obeisance before him. 'Visit
Mas tudo isto terminou de uma forma brusca e prematura. Alexandre morreu na Babilónia aos 32 anos, enquanto planeava novas conquistas. Enquanto jazia morto, a impressão e a consternação propagaram-se no seu séquito. Morrer em virtude do álcool, de febres, ou por acaso for envenenado pelos seus invejosos rivais macedónicos. Quem possuísse os seus restos mortais seria considerado seu herdeiro, e os generais macedónicos preparavam-se para o levar de volta para a Grécia, apesar de Alexandre ter expresso no seu leito de morte o desejo de ser sepultado em Siuá. Um enorme templo com rodas, cuja construção levou 2 anos, alojou e transportou os seus restos divinos. Puxado por 64 mulas e precedido por uma legião de construtores de estradas, percorreu todo o seu império. Os habitantes das cidades e dos povoados por onde passava rendiam-lhe homenagem como se se tratasse de um deus. Enquanto a procissão percorria a Síria, Ptolomeu, amigo íntimo de Alexandre e governador do Egito, sequestrou-a e desviou-a para o Nilo. Mas por fim até Ptolomeu ignorou a última vontade do rei e levou o seu corpo para a nova capital egípcia, Alexandria. Depois da morte do Alexandre histórico, surgiu algo novo e duradouro. Para os gregos, os super-homens e os salvadores divinos do seu mítico passado tinham-se, por fim, personificado em forma humana.
Gradually, there developed the notion, both in his lifetime and very much more afterwards, that Alexander had been sent from heaven, that he had, as it were, been loaned to the world for a limited period, and that upon his death, the gift had been revoked.
The people that were in his immediate entourage, his colleagues, his generals, they certainly see him as somebody who is marked out by the divine. Stories about how, when he was marching along the coast in southern Turkey, the sea bowed down to do him homage, is told by one of the people that was in his entourage.
To the Greeks, divinity was not a matter of supreme goodness or holiness. It was all about awesome, invisible power, which, if you could tap into it with the right rituals, sacrifices and so on, could confer great benefactions.
His successors who take over his fragmented kingdom, they use Alexander, they use his image, and they use the idea of kings being gods in various different ways.
Sem dúvida, o máximo exemplo de que os herdeiros de Alexandre se consideravam deuses encontra-se aqui nas remotas montanhas do oeste da Turquia. Um caminho de terra batida serpenteia até um imenso mausoléu situado no cume do monte Nemrut.
The creator of this place was King Antiochus I of Commagene, whose head has toppled down from his throne over there. He ruled the region about 2,000 years ago. The scene here says it all. The headless statue of Antiochus sits seemingly on the roof of the world, indeed on the very threshold of heaven. By presuming to seat himself among the gods, with the goddess of plenty on one side and Apollo on the other, Antiochus is in effect telling us that he is one of them. And here he shakes hands with the god Apollo, as if they were equals. Now come and look at the inscription on the back of the statues, where Antiochus, in his own words, sets out his religious beliefs. Here, boring old grammar proves to be the most potent tool for bringing his deepest thoughts to life. Now, over here, in the nominative case, is his name and his titles, meaning that he is the subject. And over here is a verb in the first person, epoiesamen, I made, meaning he's saying, I did such and such. And this is a verb in the present tense, horas, you see, meaning that he was alive when the text was composed. And over here is the ancient Greek passage Antiochos Theos, meaning he's saying, I am a living God. Well, you could be forgiven for thinking that Alexander's impact had peaked here in these mountains. But his conquests did not stop here, of course. They extended several thousand more miles eastwards to India, where his arrival triggered changes as dramatic as these, but in the mind. And this also applied down here to the south in the homeland of Judaism, where Alexander's influence brought about a transformation in Jewish attitudes in the years leading up to the birth of Christ.
A assimilação de ideias gregas resultante da ação de Alexandre, a que se chama helenização, deu lugar a que todo o mundo conhecido se convertesse num cadinho de ideias religiosas. As investigações atuais revelam pela primeira vez que Alexandre influiu surpreendentemente nas religiões da Índia, no Islão, no cristianismo inicial e em aspecto-chave do judaísmo. Surgiu uma nova espécie de líder judeu, um mestre ou rabino baseado na ideia das escolas filosóficas gregas. Aqui, junto da sarça ardente, está o grande herói judeu Moisés, com uma túnica de estilo grego. No sol desta sinagoga vemos o deus Sol, pagão grego, Hélio. Atrás da cabeça tem um disco e uns raios que representam o Sol. E de novo, com brilho de luz para realçar o seu esplendor divino, aparece Antíoco VI, um sucessor de Alexandre na Síria, que assume a ideia de ser divino. Estes reis sucessores foram ainda mais adiante. Um rei sírio posterior, Demétrio III, autodenomina-se Theos e Soter, quer dizer Deus e Salvador. Quando os romanos se converteram em poder imperial, depois dos gregos, decidiram que, como Alexandre, também eles eram reis divinos. Aqui Augusto autodenomina-se Divi Filius, filho de um deus. E no princípio do cristianismo, o imperador Nero deu um passo mais à frente ao usar uma coroa com raios para sugerir a sua divindade. Aqui neste mosaico antigo, que aparece sob o Vaticano, adornado com os mesmos raios solares que usavam os imperadores romanos, vemos Jesus, o líder do cristianismo, a religião que começava então a despontar.
Conventional Christians usually think that Jesus was naturally divine and that the early Christians did not need to interpret his divinity but simply record what they had experienced of him.
Embora a corrente principal da teologia continue destacando os antecedentes do Antigo Testamento na fundação do cristianismo e sustenha que com a morte de Jesus ocorreu algo de bastante invulgar, o polémico Dr. Burton Mack não acredita que o Jesus da Igreja inicial proceda da tradição judia.
The kings of Israel, as they were seen, portrayed, and eulogized in later historical reports, were never understood to be divine. So the notion of divinity, and especially of a universal royal divine figure, it just does not come from the Israelite tradition.
A sua solução radical é buscar noutro lugar a inspiração de Cristo como o que temos hoje em dia.
This fascination with Alexander is that you have, for the first time, a clear concept of a man-god. And so at the same time as we have this marvelous romance of Alexander filling the mentality of the time, we have the Gospels being written about Jesus, and the similarities are striking.
Em poucas palavras, o Dr. Mack faz a afirmação revolucionária de que a natureza fundamental de Cristo como homem e como Deus deriva da tradição grega da divindade de Alexandre. Por isso a mensagem de Jesus, ao contrário da sua imagem, era nova e baseava-se na não-violência e no amor a Deus. Milhares de quilómetros a este, outro mestre com ideias semelhantes ia receber o mesmo tratamento que Alexandre.
The features of Buddhism before Alexander, essentially, the Buddha was a philosophical figure rather similar to Plato or Socrates. He had not emerged as a great superman, a godlike figure. And In the first 2 centuries AD, roughly speaking, Buddhism undergoes a major transformation where the Buddha is elevated from being a simple human being into a superman, or you could say a god in some sense. So these statues come from the part of India which Alexander conquered and which subsequently retained its connections with the Western world. So figures there typically show the Buddha with a halo and with robes of Greek and Roman type. The same things happen in Hinduism at roughly the same time. Images begin to be produced which show Hindu deities holding the weapons and, for example, a club, all these things that are connected with Heracles. We don't know the direct impact of Alexander as an individual on these things. We know that Alexander assumed divine characteristics as a result of his conquest of Egypt and various parts of Asia. And it seems to have been a groundswell of change in religious attitudes, this need for some sort of superhuman being, some sort of super person who could be a savior for mankind.
Por fim, as civilizações do Egito, Grécia e Roma desapareceram e grande parte do pensamento clássico perdeu-se quando a Europa se sumiu na Idade Média. Mas nem tudo se perdeu. Floresceram histórias sobre Alexandre. A Europa medieval encantava-se com a sua história, romanceada e irreconhecível. Alexandre, com o aspecto de um cavaleiro medieval, era usado como modelo de virtude, valentia e, sobretudo, de alguém que viajava até aos confins da terra para lutar contra longínquos bárbaros.
Alexander, of course, did not only encounter humans, not normal people like himself. He also encountered such phenomena as the men with one eye in the center of their chest and this strange long pubic hair. He also encountered, say, the wild men, the hairy people, these people who were the antithesis of culture, all things that people in these courts were not. They're not well dressed, they weren't even dressed.
Os autores destes romances usavam a figura heroica de Alexandre para descrever as suas visões cada vez mais fantásticas e estranhamente proféticas.
He also had this desire to go into the skies, and this illustration shows how Alexander did it. Borne aloft on the wings of griffins, who are desperately hungry and therefore reach up and make the cage in which Alexander sits rise up into the skies as they try to reach this liver. He then descended into the sea, and he did this in a glass barrel. Through this he could see the great monsters of the deep.
It may seem odd that a figure so purely military as Alexander could be accepted and seen as a paragon of virtue by the medieval Christians, but let's not forget that medieval Christianity was also a highly military religion.
The Crusades promoted a Christianity which wanted to conquer by the sword, not by love, by the sword.
Mil anos depois da morte de Alexandre, Maomé, um profeta da Península Arábica, fundou o Islão.
Unlike Hinduism and Buddhism, the first generations of Muslims felt driven to expand the Islamic world by the sword, and from its beginnings at Mecca, Islam quickly won a vast holy empire, as big in fact as its Roman predecessor.
A impressionante cidadela árabe do Cairo, que contém a esplêndida mesquita de Muhammad Ali, demonstra a sofisticação e poderio militar do Islão. Investigações recentes de alguns historiadores estão a descobrir uma importante fonte de inspiração para as suas conquistas militares.
Early Arab writings suggest that the precedent they were following in this armed expansion of God's kingdom on earth was none other than Alexander the Great, whom they saw as a military genius, but conquering for God's glory, not his own.
The first appearance of Alexander in Arabic literature is in fact in the Quran. Alexander is, of course, not normally known by the name of Alexander in the Quran and in the other early Arabic writings. The name he's given is Dhul-Qarnayn, which means the two-horned one in Arabic. That's a name that he acquires from the representations of him where he is shown with the ram's horns of his supposed father, the god Ammon. This is a unique image. It represents Alexander the Great visiting the Kaaba at Mecca, the holy black stone which stands at the center of the most holy city of the Islamic world. No image could express more clearly how seriously Alexander was taken by Muslim thinkers and writers in the medieval world.
Assim, pois, parece que muitas das religiões, como as conhecemos hoje em dia, devem bastante ao legado de Alexandre. Terminamos como começamos há tantos meses, procurando o lugar onde repousam os restos de Alexandre Magno.
Back here in Egypt, Alexandria remains a city of mystery. In ancient times, this shaft was used for lowering the dead into the catacombs of Kom-Shugafa, down below me.
Creio que neste labirinto de câmaras funerárias meio submersas sob a atual Alexandria, estou mais próximo do que alguma vez jamais poderei estar do cadáver de Alexandre. Mas nunca se sabe o que aparecerá. A construção da nova biblioteca foi interrompida devido a algumas descobertas e planeia-se escavar no lugar da antiga mesquita de Dhul-Qarnayn. Eliana Sovaltzis continua a escavar, segura de que está prestes a descobrir o seu querido Alexandre. Não deixa de encontrar fragmentos, como estas estrelas macedónicas nos vestidos das mulheres e nos anéis. E quais são os segredos destas estranhas danças circulares que, segundo se diz, derivam do culto a Ammon em tempos de Alexandre? E afirma-se que a touca das crianças imita a forma dos elmos do exército de Alexandre Magno.
When I'm gone, I like my ashes be scattered in the desert near Alexander.
Well, what have I come to know about Alexander at the end of my search? Writers of all ages seem to have placed a smokescreen around Alexander. He has become all things to all men, both admired as the noblest of humans and reviled as the cruelest of despots.
O extraordinário êxito militar deste conquistador errante e o consequente poder divino que ostentava parecem ter alimentado em nós a necessidade universal de um herói que transcenda de alguma forma as nossas limitações humanas. E como morreu jovem, estas façanhas não foram ensombradas pelo passar do tempo nem pela decadência física.
The myth of Alexander belongs to us all, to use as we will.